In Resistance Fallout Man, we offer single-player gameplay. You can play through the entire story by yourself. You can also play with a friend in co-op mode through the entire story. We also have several levels of difficulty that you can play. We also have multiplayer modes. We have multiplayer offline, where you can play with 3 other friends in split-screen mode. And we have multiplayer online, where you can play with up to 39 other players in 40-player online modes.
We have these meetings where the whole company comes together and we'll discuss weapons or enemies or traps or ways to surprise the player. And then gameplay's primary role is to actually then figure out how to make that possible. So it's sort of a mixture of creative and feasibility, and how do you bring those two things together?
What we try to do is, again, give a lot of variety. So in sequences where we don't necessarily have action, we want to creep out the player. You know, there's nooks and crannies, there's shadows for things. It keeps the player on their toes.
We spend a lot of time actually on pacing. And we play the levels over and over and over again and evaluate and tweak. We track everything. We track how many times the player died, how many times they fired, how many times they hit, how many times they missed. Does the player have an opportunity to duck behind a wall and then pop up and shoot somebody? Or is he going to get cheap-shotted if he tries to do this technique?
Of course, it's a first-person shooter, so the emphasis is on shooting. But there are levels where you are by yourself and you are running solo through some of these levels, fighting off hordes of creatures. In other levels, you're fighting within a large group of allies against large groups of chimera. So your tactics differ depending on your situation.
We evaluate the strategies that players are trying to do in the office and verify that the ones that actually make sense work. A lot of times what we do requires a tremendous amount of iteration, and it also takes a lot of suggestions and comments from people all across the company.
The enemy AI is pretty varied. We have the smaller creatures like the Leapers who have more of a swarm mentality where they're not really thinking too much, they're just going for the character. Then we have characters like the Hybrids who are more, shall we say, troop-oriented. They use squad tactics to flank you. They have cover behavior where if they are getting shot, they're going to go take cover. Then we have some of the larger creatures who will pretty much destroy anything in their way to get to you. So we keep it varied. But one thing that really ties all of the combat situations together is the weapons. And figuring out how to combine them to fight against these very different enemies is what makes the game really fun.